How's it going? Thanks for joining me again in another episode of the Life Coach's Corner. I'm your host, Tony Longobardi, and I have a very, very special guest tonight. One of my favorite people. He may not know this, and I probably don't tell him enough, but easily one of my favorite people to spend time with, my friend Bob Berberich. Yeah, thank you for joining us, Bob. Yeah. Bob yeah, of course. Bob is a different life coach than maybe I've had before, and he's a different coach. He coaches in a different atmosphere and different element. And one of the things that I think is really, really important in life coaching is because there's like not one size fits all, right? Everybody has a gift that you can accept or not. And I'm really excited to offer. So Bob, tell the guests a little bit about yourself. Maybe if you want to share a little bit how you know me, maybe one of the times we almost got into a fight on one of our weekends together. and then we'll get started.
Tony always wants to fight on various levels. So I always liked a little fight myself. I had an older brother that was 2 years older than me, and my mother hated it, but we fought all the time. I mean, I loved it. It was just how I lived. So there's a part of me that triggers that in Tony, and so
and triggers it in you too.
There's a little fighting between us. So
every once in a while, you're like, I just kind of want to test myself, see what I got.
So thank you for all the flattering comments. And you know what? I just really just love your energy. And so it's a mutual, you're really diving into this. So it's fun to see you do that. So a little bit about myself. I know Tony through Mankind Project. And so I don't know how much he's said about that on other Coaches Corner, but it's a men's group, and that has been a real formative thing and experience for my life in terms of just really becoming more conscious and aware, and accessing parts of myself that I sometimes could, but I can do it more consciously. And I think that's part of that journey was through the Mankind Project. And so we've, Tony and I have staffed weekends together and other things. And so I think for me, what I did in the Mankind Project, I was working another job in computer services. So it was technical. I did consulting, I did training. So I was engaging. I did the people part, but when I sold my business and wanted to do more, I realized what I did in MKP was really just fundamental. I wanted more of that engagement and the intensity of really, putting myself in situations where it calls me to dig down and find out more what's possible, what I can do. And so that's a big piece of how I said, I want to do something with it. I didn't exactly know what that was going to look like.
Do any of us, right? Huh? I said, do any of us know when we see that thing inside of us, when we finally feel it, we're like, what am I going to do with this now? So tell us a little bit about how you came to be a coach and what that looks like for you.
So I sold my business, worked a few years, and then they kicked me out. So that happens a lot. My boss said, the problem is you don't like what you're doing now, and what you want to do is my job, and there's only one of them. So I have always read self-help and done a lot around how do I understand the way people work. I've always had an interest in, moved towards conversations that went deeper about what's going on, And I loved the consulting work I did that was technical. What my real experience is that kind of being present to everything, and then kind of having the moment where I just have an insight that can really spark a light in other people. That's a magic thing in me. And so I looked, how do I use that? And so I was doing work. And so I did a few trainings. One, it's really a basis for a lot of what I do, especially with businesses. It's the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. It's a Conscious Leadership Forum is the organization. I did a training with that, and that's a real fundamental piece. And so after that, and then a couple other workshops exploring some potential coaching opportunities and approaches, I just decided to sort of start doing it and offering some things based on the trainings that I have had and the reading that I've done. And so I started looking for opportunities, did some coaching for myself in terms of how do I start a business, and just started putting that together.
Awesome. And can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, sure.
Was it hard?
Which part?
starting the coaching practice and transitioning from the job that you knew and were comfortable with to maybe something that you didn't know too much about.
Yeah. There's two things. One, I never knew how much I identified with having work to do. And so being unemployed, and that was really a kind of a hit. And so starting coaching, the fact that it doesn't just happen, it's like people didn't just say, oh, I heard you wanted to be a coach. I had to figure out how to put myself out there. And even though I knew I had a lot of insight, actually looking at what am I going to offer? How would I approach working with people? And what is it that I can use? Because, a lot of the pieces I use for myself, and maybe in this conversation or that conversation, I had to decide, if I'm making an offering, how do I really be more conscious about that? And so that was there was wrestling with that, and the sort of stop and start kind of like, do I know what I'm doing? Kind of questioning how much training should I get? So there was ambiguity, and on some level, it also just happened. It's the pain was mostly me worried that somehow it wasn't going to go okay, and then things happened and they went okay.
Thank you for that. Absolutely, because that seems to be the story. A lot of us struggle with this endeavor initially, especially with coaching. It's still, is this going to work out or is it not? And how far do we push? And how do we know when to call it quits, or how do we know when to transition? But thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself. So this is the Life Coach's Corner, and how we do this is we run 5 rounds of questions. So each round will have 5 minutes, and then we'll go into usually audience questions, but I'm going to pull that back. For the last couple of episodes, we really had some great audience encounters and coaching moments and beautiful opportunities, and I'm going to try something different. So today we won't have an audience, and this will be the first time that I try this. We'll see how it goes, and if it's flat, let me know. If it's not, come down and join us. So how we'll go 5 questions, and then I've finished out with just if anything that Bob wants to say, address, or maybe go over again, touch base again. The reason why I create this Life Coach's Corner is because in each fight, there's a moment in between each round. And this is the coaching moment for every fighter to get equipped to go on to the next round and hopefully not get knocked out. So this is an opportunity for you to have a coaching moment with Bob. And how this works is I usually ask a couple forums that I'm connected with. If you see me out there, answer a question. If I ask a question, answer it. And maybe maybe I'll ask you a question. Maybe I'll bring you on to ask Bob or somebody else that I might have in the future. So are you ready, Bob?
Yeah.
All right. So the first question, let me get my timer ready. I don't think that I have my boxing timer anymore. I know, right? Oh, but it's going to be about 5 minutes. And the first question is from a guy named, I think, Marcin Abel. He from a group that I'm with, Principles into Practice. I ask this is a pretty heavy group, so I ask a lot of questions on this group. But he asks, "Why are you doing this?" Which I figure is close to why are you being a life coach? What drove you to become a life coach?
Yeah. I wanted to use part of myself that wants to go deeper with people. I like doing a lot of groups. I work with businesses, a significant amount, where I like the dynamic of people, whether it's couples or a group. I like the magic of just discovery and watching people discover or have insights. And, I knew that after I changed my past career, I wanted to do something that had that creative, that part of me that just wants to engage and really loves knowing about people and helping people know about what's possible. This is this experience that I can talk about as being as a kid, maybe young teenager, but there was this moment where I had this sense of being precious, that somehow this, that it opened up this, like, I can explore anything because somehow I didn't question. I was just valued. And I think a lot of times people in all kinds of places in life, and I've done it since then. I had that moment and I go back to it. But on some level, I think we carry a lot of stories. And a lot of times it's knowing how to shift that or give it a context for our life, so that instead of that story being who we are, we're a precious person that has that story as part of our life. That's part of our lesson. And that's kind of what I want to do with people, is help them kind of discover how to really appreciate that somehow being special. It doesn't mean everything works perfect, but it's that discovery.
Yeah.
So that's a root of what drove me to really get involved in coaching.
Just being kind of engaged with people and showing them that they're not their story, right? I like the way you said that you're not your story. Your story is a part of you as a precious person. Yeah. So do you think when you were a kid, were you a teenager? Did you stumble upon it? Did people just continually ask you for advice? Eventually you were just like, I'm just going to turn this into a career.
Well, this is a way back. I used to be a Catholic priest. So there was a part of me that was I was enamored with, God and meaning and helping people. And so I did pastoral counseling and a lot of, in a sense, similar to what I do as coaching in a different context back then. And telling stories and helping people discover that preciousness was really part of what I did. I moved on from that, had a job, a career in business. And so in some ways it was going back to roots of being of service and really in that deep personal engagement of the meaning of life. How do you make meaning? How do you create meaning with the journey you're on? And so.
Yeah, and I think that as a Catholic priest, there's probably a lot of people coming to you for advice in some level, right? Maybe religious, or maybe life, or maybe, relationship.
Right. I mean, it happened in so many circumstances, and, it was seldom the formal kind of coaching, but often it was some problem or circumstance, or, my opinion, or somehow people came and were interested. And so it was a big part of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you had something that people wanted. You have something, not past tense, but present tense. You have something that people want. And so if you're a person out there that's obviously a lot of people are coming to for advice or help or support in any way, maybe this is your calling too. Maybe you can become a Catholic priest like Bob and teach in that way. Or maybe you can go to become a chief at a tribe and teach in that way. Or maybe you can become a firefighter and teach in that way and coach in that way. So yeah, thank you so much for Bob. You have anything else to say that you want to talk a little bit about? Some reasons why you chose? Are you ready to go on to the next round?
Well, you mentioned firefighters, and I thought, well, another coaching thing that I'm really good at is I was a ski instructor, and I really like helping people learn to ski, because often it's observing what people do and helping them become conscious of what they're doing to develop precise skills and body awareness so that they can really just have fun. It's something that it's like coaching. It's part of how do I watch and engage people to create in them some awareness that serves them.
So. Yeah, fundamentals, right? To teaching and offering. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, Bob. All right, ready. So Violetta Sendico, I think is her name. Again, from Principles into Practice. I'm gonna get I have one more from them, that group tonight, and then maybe I'll pick someone else, because I got a lot of questions to go through this page. But Violetta asks, what do you tell yourself when you are feeling down?
Wow. I think the most important thing that I'm aware of is that I often don't even know that I'm feeling down. Often I may be responding in life, and sometimes it's almost like, aha, I'm feeling down. What I tell myself often is, oh, I'm feeling down.
Okay. So you're saying it's not a consciousness?
Right. Well, bringing to consciousness that I'm experiencing something. And so I think, it's like, if I'm feeling down, it's not a bad or a good thing. It is. And often I'm just bringing awareness to the fact that I'm down, and almost acknowledging to myself, oh, I feel down, I feel sad, I feel, and sometimes, I could be in a circumstance where I need to respond to somebody else. I mean, sometimes I might just do that and then shift to be present. But sometimes I might have enough time to notice what I'm feeling, what's there, because often all of my feelings teach me a lesson. And if I have that moment, I can actually pay attention to the feeling and often get wisdom. And, so sometimes just doing that can help me shift. And other times, just briefly acknowledging it, then I can choose to shift something about what's happening in me so I can be present to whatever I'm attending to.
Right.
So it depends on where I'm at in my life, or what I'm doing. But clearly, my first thing is to acknowledge it and make it okay. Not judge. I'm feeling down. I shouldn't be doing this. It's no, I'm feeling down. I wonder what it's telling me.
Mhm.
And if I need to be in some other space, honor that and then shift instead of the sort of like bad.
Right, right.
So that's what I really think. If I'm feeling down, somehow it's like honor that.
Okay, I love that. I
And
love that. So if you become aware of it, notice it in yourself, feel it, know that it's happening, and maybe it's not like a pretextual thing, or a preconceived notion. Maybe you find out after the fact, like, oh, wait a minute, I'm feeling down, and then you become aware of it and maybe allow it, right? There's an allowance piece, like, oh, now I'm letting it happen. Now I'm understanding that it's here. I'm allowing it to happen. I'm not trying to push it here, push it there, fix it, change it. I'm not allowed to feel this way. And then you also said honor it, right? So, what is this trying to teach me about this moment? Is that kind of correct?
yeah, absolutely. And sometimes the question, and if I do this with somebody else, sometimes they'll ask this question specifically, and what is the emotion? What's that in your body when you just let yourself be aware of it? What's the wisdom that it has for you? Because there's some wisdom. You're not having this emotion for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be all the stories that you're coming up in your head, but if you really notice the emotion in your body, what's going on? What's the wisdom? And so that's the question I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, Bob, that's so good. That's so good, because we are so quick and rushing to fix whatever emotion that we perceive isn't supposed to be there. Happy, joy, shame, fear, whatever it is, whatever we perceive is not supposed to be there. Let me fix it before I just sit with it. And the challenge I'm hearing is sit with it, notice it, acknowledge it, honor it.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that. So maybe the trick isn't to tell yourself anything at all. Maybe the trick is, and the answer to this question is just to see it.
Mm-hmm. Right. There is a step often where we find ourselves in life where we have to respond to life. If you have kids,
Right.
I'm feeling down. I still may need to do something. And so sometimes without sort of dishonoring, I can notice, and sometimes it can be brief, but sometimes then I can then create a shift in my body that allows me sort of acknowledging, yeah, there's some part of me that this story's coming up. It's like, oh, I can, if I see it as a part of me instead of all of me, then I can honor it and then choose to shift to other parts of, how I'm responding in life. And so that's usually how I try to look at, being down or any feeling that's coming, including joy. Sometimes I don't take enough time to actually notice joy in myself. It's like almost like, oh, I got that one, and I'm past it before I notice it. Sometimes when stopping just to notice joy is a tremendous gift.
Or stopping to notice love, right? Like, oh, what a gift love is, that emotion. Just let me stop and sit in the love for a second, not try to give it to somebody else or tell somebody else about it. Just let me be in that for a moment. I love it. Love it. Thank you. Hopefully that answers Violetta's question. We're going to move on to the next one. Are you ready?
Yeah.
You need a drink of water or anything? Good to go?
I'm good.
You need some coaching right now? You good to go on to the next one? So I think
I always need some coaching.
Same.
That's part of it.
And that's why we do what we do in our men's groups. It's a great opportunity for us to look at our own stuff. But I think, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, so I apologize. Rashan or Rakan, our body said, from Principles in the Practice, had asked, should we listen to the mind or the heart if both differs in the opinions?
Yeah, that's you should listen to the mind and the heart. And I want to say you should listen to your gut. there's three centers.
Trifecta.
There's
Wow.
in our mind, there is the sort of this analytical and it can go deep and think. And sometimes our gut is kind of the brain being trained to respond to life circumstance. And so it can be brilliant at making great decisions. And our emotions are often kind of signaling. It's like, oh, left turn, stop ahead. We left something behind. It's emotions often, connection possible, all these pieces. And a lot of times learning to be present to this mix of who I am as a human, that's mind, because sometimes my mind tells stories. An emotion comes up and then I have an opinion about it and my mind goes like this, and then there's the rational. And so one of the things is, how do I check the story and say, is it true? And do I really know something's true, so that I kind of release myself from all the sort of suspend all those arguments that get me off track, and actually pay attention. What do I know? And so it's in a sense honoring my emotions, but also sort of taking away the sort of monkey brain that can get triggered. I think I'm feeling something, but really it's like this little spark plug. It keeps generating thoughts that make me feel worse and worse. And so I think feeling my feelings, really becoming aware of what the wisdom is, and knowing if there's something to really think about in terms of what's true or not, and kind of learning to trust my gut when I really have experience. Do I need to respond? Use that energy to draw me into what's right. And so I think it's some balance of, it's just, I'm a whole person.
Absolutely. And we are getting a little bit of connection issues, so hopefully we can get the majority of what Bob's saying, because it's beautiful stuff. And I think that he talked about, the very few times you cut out, Bob, so don't worry. I think we got the majority of it. But I liked how you talked about the mind being about logic, the heart being about emotion, and the gut being maybe about, it wasn't your words, but I'm going to put them there, intuition, right? The gut is your intuition, the heart is your emotion, and the mind is your logic, right? Which can sometimes differ in reasoning, and at the same time using your experience and exposure to make the best decision that you can, knowing that you're not going to be right all the time, right?
Yes.
Cool. And are you right all the time, Bob? Are you, as a life coach, are we supposed to be right all the time?
Absolutely. Come on, Tony. I was asked a question in an interview one time. What's my biggest insight about coaching? And what gets in the way? I forget how the question went, but what gets in the way of people finding what they, it is, in my opinion, it is the need to be right.
Okay, let me make sure I heard that right. You said what gets in the way of what people want, or what was that?
Getting what they want.
Yeah. Okay. Is
connection or whatever. It's the need to be right.
Okay.
It's not being right, because I might be right, but when I need to be right, I get in my own way.
Yeah.
And I fracture relationships, and I close off. Yeah. Because if I need to be right, then I'm in defense mode, that fighting, it's like, and I think, needing to be right is a real adversary to a joyous life and a full life. And
Right.
and it doesn't mean you stop thinking. It just notice when that logic is a defense of being okay instead of a curiosity that is open to what's out there. So
yeah, I love that. And I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit and challenge the audience, challenge the people maybe watching sometime, and say, your need, what Bob is saying is your need to be right is getting in the way of what you want. So humble yourself, accept that you don't know everything and you may be wrong sometimes, and what you want might show up.
Yeah.
Or it won't, and you can come back. Try again.
And I want, this is the subtle thing, you might not be wrong.
True.
It might be just incomplete, Oh,
I love it. Yeah.
It's just like, sometimes if I had directions, I could have gotten 1,000 miles. And if I missed the turn that went across the bridge, I could have seen the house where I wanted to end up, the person that I wanted to be with, but I was on the other side of the river because one part. And when I want to be right, I don't find that other piece. I don't open up to know what I don't know. And so I think I try to avoid it being wrong. It's like there is something in me. And so if there's something that's not complete, or where I don't have everything there, or it's just creating an openness for more instead of
A or B, right? This or that, right or wrong. I like how you said that too, right? It's not being right or wrong. It's maybe just being incomplete. That's awesome. Great. That's fantastic. So we're going to move on. You ready?
Yep.
All right. A friend of mine, actually, I like to pull some of the questions from my own friends because I have an intimate connection with them, right? And so I feel like some of these questions can be answered, and that can help some of my friends out. And maybe they come on and ask a question. Maybe they get something really special from it, and they end up calling Bob or whoever the coach may be. But my friend Amanda Finch, very dear friend of mine, knows me 20 years now. I think she knows me. She asked, how do you start training yourself to build a great routine? Whew.
I have a little checklist of,
Okay.
I don't know if you can't make this out, but for my week. And so I have the very first one. I put DP for my daily practice. It's usually some mindfulness training. And then I have a check-in. I check in with my wife every day. And then there's some others that are more physical and learning. A routine, I think, how do you start a great routine? Mindfulness is what I think. Having some practice where you become more conscious of what's happening, that you're paying attention. And in mindfulness, it is noticing anything that comes up, that it is a part of you. And that ability to notice parts, then it lets you begin to become responsible. So that's the start in my mind.
Okay.
Create a great routine. Obviously, I went through my routine. On some level, I have this checklist for my day.
Right.
And so if I were talking to Amanda, I'd have some questions about, what is she talking? What are you trying to create a routine about? Because I have a routine for coaching that it's like I have different routines for how I start or engage in different areas of life.
What about, let me jump in real quick. What if you wanted to start working out or start maybe putting your kids into a better routine, or what like fundamentally would you kind of start with to go about that?
There's two things that I'll say. That if you start a routine, focus on creating it a simple way, because a simple way to get started. So in a sense, it's putting on the clothes,
right,
either mentally or to be, like if you put on running clothes, you're more likely to run. So in some level, create a way to start. It's better to say, I'm going to spend 2 minutes doing something, than to say, I'm going to do an hour every day.
Yeah. Okay.
And say, I'm going to do, when you start a routine, know what's possible, but how to start in to get yourself in that movement that's one piece of it. And the other thing is, this is true for almost all change. If I know a circumstance, if I know a circumstance where somebody bugs me and I want to change my relationship with that situation, I have to make the decision to notice it right when it happens. If I wait until I'm already pissed or so, create a routine where as soon as I see the trigger, it's like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I plan out my first, whatever I can do in 60 seconds. That's what I plan, because that might be put on my clothes and change, if it's exercise, it's like, but set it up so that you can trigger the behavior by cues that happen in your life, and have something that you do. The first thing, really, the rest of it then can happen. But it
usually does. If you really want it, if you start something, it's going to happen.
Right. So that's how I think you start to build a routine, is you do the mental work to get yourself moving in that direction.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love that you're able to talk a little bit about starting small, right? A lot of people, my judgment as well, and we both know this in MKP, our coaching practice, and even our friend circles. We have this grandiose idea on what we want when we don't even think about the little steps that it takes to get there. And without doing the little steps, you're never going to get to the big picture. So beautiful, yeah. Awesome. Another friend of mine, I've completely forgot, Elizabeth Hansen, smart cat. She's amazing. So she asked a question from another friend of mine. Am I fulfilling my purpose? Are roadblocks a sign that I need to be investing my energy somewhere else?
Elizabeth Gilbert, I listened to a book that she did, and she made this comment about, it's like, people are so worried about their purpose and their, it's got to be my passion. And she said, what are you curious about?
Yeah.
What are you curious about?
Okay.
And let that take you. It's like so many people their question, have I found my purpose? It's like, are you engaged by it? Are you still curious? Is it giving you meaning? Follow it. If it's not, and your thing about roadblocks, it's like, how would I know if, because there's a roadblock, if you think it's a sign that you should go into something else, it probably means that. But because if you really want something, a roadblock is really almost like, it's like a tool to train you to get better at where you're going. So a roadblock for something that really is driving you in the moment. So use it as a sign. Don't say the roadblock means something. the roadblock is for you to find the meaning. If it's in the way of something you want, use it to learn. And if it's makes you realize that I don't know that I want that, then find what you're curious about.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so simple. That's so, because we've on this show program had multiple questions about purpose. Multiple. I mean, that's probably the single most thing that people are asking about is, what is my purpose? And I love it how you just simply put, what are you curious about, right? Follow what you're curious about, because your intuitive or innate curiosity will drive you to what you really will find will blossom into your purpose. I think, maybe people think that there's this, strucken down idea on purpose, on what your mission is and what you're supposed to do with the world and the life, but maybe it's not like that. Maybe your purpose is something you build and cultivate over time and getting through roadblocks and mistakes and learning the lesson that those are. And I love that too. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
my purpose is it's to coach and to train and to engage people in finding meaning in life. But it's partly because I get such joy and I keep becoming a better person. But I also get a lot of joy teaching somebody to ski. And so, if I happen to be on a ski slope,
totally. And maybe we don't have just one purpose, right? Maybe we have multiple purposes.
Yeah.
So I think that absolutely we have callings, we have purpose, and there are things that we love to do as a passion or as a side, and we don't need money to enjoy it. We want to make money, of course, in life, because this world is derived by money. So yeah, absolutely. But passion, find your curiosity, whatever you're curious about, follow that, and maybe it turns into your passion and your purpose.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that does it. Thank you, Bob, for spending so much time with me. It is a pleasure to see you always. I hope we get to see each other again soon. When COVID gets over, maybe we'll see each other on a weekend. Maybe we'll see each other on a carpet somewhere, or maybe in the ring somewhere, brother. Is there anything that you want to finish with our guests, or anything that you want to say or touch on a little bit more? Or
your kind of joke about in the ring, there is a part of me that just has always loved the challenge of that kind of tenacity. It's like, I don't always know the right thing. I think just find the part where your tenacity that wants to move, and so just let yourself don't evaluate too much. Just discover the part that is just wants to get in there and live, and the tenacious part that's gonna go for it and let it happen. So, I'm done.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. And maybe we won't get in the ring someday. And the big piece of the getting in the ring is just about like challenging yourself. Find something that you're passionate about, like you said, that you're curious about. It's just a little bit past your comfort zone, a little challenging.
Yeah.
So that it drives you, and you always fighting for something, grinding, because my judgment, I believe you think the same thing, is we are purpose-driven, mission-driven people. This is what we have to accomplish. We have to achieve. We want that. We want that value indicator. But I could go on a huge tangent about that, and I'll stop here. Bob, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Be well.
Take care. Be well.